Good morning. My name is Steve.
And I'm Paul, and this is the Better Human Dad's Dadcast, where our mission is quite simple: to equip and inspire fathers with the tools, knowledge, and community needed to grow into emotionally present and supportive dads. And this morning we have a special guest, Kevin Murdoch. Kevin is here. He is the mayor of the municipality of Oak Bay, which is a municipality here in Victoria. Super busy guy, and welcome to the Dadcast, Kev.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's start things off. Kevin, give our readers an introduction to who you are, how many kids you are, and your current dad role.
Sure. Yes, I've got two kids now. They've grown up differently than I moved around all the time. So did my wife when we were growing up. My kids have had the luxury of having a completely stable living in one house the entire time here in Oak Bay.
Nice.
My son is now 18, turning 19, and my daughter is 16, and they're awesome.
Nice,
Cool.
nice. Yeah, we have very similar. Our kids are 16 and 19, so we're in the same arena as we previously talked about. So, um, Kev, we use this term, the better human dads. So, when you saw that question, what came up for you? Like, what does it mean to you? Beyond providing and protecting your two kids.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, there's so many answers to that question. Not gonna lie, I struggled a little bit with it. I went down rabbit holes, and it's interesting. I guess where I ended up on this one was that we're all part of, I guess, a continuum or a legacy, right? So not all of us. Hopefully, we had good dads ourselves. We learned from them. We hopefully will pass on, be good dads to our kids, and they get to be good dads to their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sort of whole context of that was sort of the framework where I kept coming back to. When I was growing up, I remember we borrowed a car from a friend to do something as a family, and at the end of using that car, my dad was like, "We have to return it better than we got it," right? So we had to clean the car, we had to fill it up with gas, we had to just
Mm,
leave a little thank you note. We just, it was, and that was very, very embedded in everything he did.
mm,
And I think, if I sort of look at where I see being a better human dad, it's that sort of, every little thing is how do you do it a little bit better? And hopefully
mm,
that's a carry on cascade because, we all have, there's multiple generations that come and there's bad things and good things that happen in there. But I think
Mm-hmm.
my hope would always be that you're sort of leaving things a little bit better than you found them. And so,
yeah.
and I wanted to just touch on. I mean, I like the question, but I also thought, the providing and protecting part it is actually an important part of being a dad, and ties into that, right? I mean, I do think that we all want our kids to have the resources, whether that's mental strength or financial resources or the skills to thrive, and so a lot of that sort of, I think a lot of our role is to give them those tools and to provide those pieces for it. And so I like the question, but I also thought, that providing and protecting piece is still super important, right? It's an
Yeah.
incredibly core part of who we are as parents. Um, and I think the other thing that as I was going through that, because I thought about my dad, and there's my parents are still very active in my kids' life. They're this
Mm.
lovely, my parents are classic grandparents, um,
Nice.
Excellent,
full of
nice.
love and warmth and everything wonderful. And but there's also my wife, having the strength of that partnership, and having each other's backs, and being able to sort of have those supports is super important. And then all of the friends and people who give advice. And there wasn't podcasts when I was growing up or having kids, but they're here now. And I think, things like this are super important in all aspects of how we get to be better parents. And so I do think those are, how do we get better? I think it's just we're always trying to have an open mind about how to be better and to do the right things by our kids. So a bit of a rambling answer, but there you go.
No, not
No,
at all.
it's yeah,
It,
it's go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna say, I love what you said about, the influence your dad had on you. and that passing that generation. Oh my God, I can't even say that. Passing it along, and I'd just be curious. Was there? And so you mentioned one of the lessons was leave things better than they were before. Um, do you find that you did receive a lot of these lessons from your dad, and you've been able to take these lessons and then pass them down to your kids?
Yes, I would say 100%.
Hmm.
And many of them, and I think many of them I didn't necessarily appreciate at the time, as we don't when we're young. Uh, but uh,
That's so
but
true,
it
right?
really stuck with me. Like one of the things that really did when we were, when we had our first child was, the question of often comes up, right? Kids don't tend to listen to you, but they tend to watch you. And so there's this, there was choices made. And my parents, interestingly, when they had my sister, who is older than me, um, they made a choice at that point that they couldn't figure out any explanation of how to explain what was a reasonable amount of drinking. And so they just stopped drinking. They just said, you know what, if we're going to be an
Way.
example for our kids,
Oh,
we're not going to drink. Because it was very hard to explain why it was okay for them or what the limit was and things. And so they just said, yeah, it's easier for us to be an example. And so I thought, well, I didn't go that far, but I don't, that really, so those things, right? They're really good examples, I think, of ways that modeled what, prioritizing their kids over themselves. And that,
and
yeah,
Yeah,
it's something you'll find interesting is that we're hearing a common theme now about how kids watch your every move, and you are a role model, and realizing that everything you do, they're going to evaluate, may hopefully pick it up, and so thanks for that because it's become a theme, by the way.
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Not so
Mhm.
much what you say, but certainly what you do, right? Which is so
Yeah,
critical. Yeah.
so true.
So, Kevin, did your dad tell you that he loved you, and did you feel loved by your dad?
Yes, it wasn't. I don't remember him saying that very much. I think we say it a lot more in our household.
Hmm.
Mm.
But I think it was. I always felt, you know, uh, you know, what I felt growing up was that my parents, loved me very much, and I was safe. And so I
Mm.
think that's
Good.
why I said the protection piece, I think, is an important one. And I think that a lot of what we can do to give our kids the environment where they can take risks and fail and do these things is by providing a sort of an unconditional understanding that there is a loving environment for them to be in, because there isn't a lot of safe places, right, for kids. And so
Hmm.
I think the home is an important part of that. So again, saying it less, but I think demonstrating it constantly was a really key factor of what I saw growing up. I think we talk about it more now in our generation, right? We're a bit more expressive about it, and I think that's really important. But again, I don't think that saying it matters if it doesn't. Again, it's the modeling versus the saying, right? So
Yeah. Talk is
Exactly.
cheap, kind of thing, right?
yeah, yeah, it's easy to be a horrible person and then say, "But I love you." It's not very. No one believes that at the end of the day.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Just a question on, so now your kids are going through, we're calling them seasons actually, where they have different seasons of life, and your kids are going to the whatever that next season might be pretty soon, in their 20s and becoming adults. What are some of the lessons that you've learned over this period of time that maybe surprised you, or something that you would even share with somebody who was asking for advice?
Yeah, I don't get asked for advice too often, but let's just take that
You
theoretical.
will, you will.
I think surprises. There's so many, right? I think none of us are entirely prepared for parenthood ever.
Hmm.
And I was really worried when my wife was pregnant that I didn't feel like I had any of those sort of paternal instincts or emotions coming in uh,
Hmm.
until like our oldest is my son, and when he was born and just holding him and walking around the hospital with him, that there was an immediate bond there that I was worried wasn't going to happen, and then it did. And so I think that was a bit of a surprise because I'd almost convinced myself I didn't have those instincts there. Um, I'm this continues to this day. This has never changed with seasons. Is my how externally when the kids were born, but the first one was born, but both of them, you know, my entire ego seems to have been removed from my body and put onto the kids. So my only feelings of pride or embarrassment and things are all attached to what my kids do and not what I do anymore. And so I
That's
think
great.
that was a bit of a shock. I'm like, it's totally irrational. It's totally irrational.
Hmm. That's
It's
interesting.
a
You
great one.
talk about
Yeah.
when your child was born. Did you feel like a mental shift when you held your son for the first time? And
Yeah, there's been a couple of times in my life where these sort of like there's moments that you just really kind of feel it, and
hmm,
that was one of them. 100% was just that. I don't want to call it a weight, but um,
Hmm.
there was a connection there with the child. You realize, I mean, they're so fragile, right? They're just
Yeah.
super tiny and fragile and magical and so yeah, there's just that moment where you're just like, wow, this is I have every this person will die if I am not if I
Hmm.
don't do my job of taking care of it, and
hmm,
Yeah.
that's a that's a big big weight basically
yeah,
on there, but it wasn't not a bad weight,
Hmm.
just a sense of responsibility that was really meaningful. The only other time I can think of in my life actually was when I first became a counselor and got sworn
Oh.
in, and you have to say all those words about how you're taking, you're owning the responsibility of the outcome of the whole municipality, and there are all those
Hmm.
obligations that you swear to in a public space. And I remember feeling that kind of same first, oh yeah, this is an obligation that I am taking on and I can't back out of, and it's now part of my life is that this is part of it. So deeper with the kids than that, but that was the only
Hmm.
really two moments in my life I remember really feeling like, okay, I've taken on a responsibility consciously, and here we go. This is it.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so let's ask this question. If you had a redo, Kevin, as a dad, is there things that you would have done differently and why?
Um, so 100%, I think I'm always my own biggest critic on everything. So it's hard not to look back and wish that I had done a lot of things different. I guess, the one asset we never get back, of course, is time. And I think, if I had one thing, it would have just been I tried very hard to make time for my kids. I really did. And I, made changes in my life to try and make sure I wasn't too absent. But I think there would have been benefit in hindsight of just putting in my calendar that take the phone, put it in a drawer from 6 to 9
Hmm.
p.m., and that's the default, so that you're just there and present, whatever that is to
Nice.
do with the kids. And I think by not sort of making sure I put that as the default, by the nature of life, things get busy and you don't spend as much time. So I look back on that. And I think the other one that I wish I had spent more effort at finding is the finding like a third space, where like you share a hobby or an activity that you can do with the
Hmm.
kids that is owned by both of you equally. Um,
Yeah, that's
I have my
interesting.
activities
It's a good
and,
idea.
and and the kids have theirs, and we do things together, but we didn't really find that thing, um, and I think that's a really really valuable. It's not necessary, but I think it's a really incredibly valuable thing to have where
Absolutely.
whether it's, I mean, we have moments of it, right? We go out kayaking or something, and you have that time together. But it's nice when it's not your thing or it's not their thing, or you're not taking them to
Right.
their soccer game, you're not going to your event. It's something that you share together, and I think that's probably the one thing where you can own that together, and that can last, through much of your life. And this really came home to me just a couple of months ago. My son and I did a little road trip together. We're taking up to see his cousin, and we ended up having 8 hours in a car alone together, just driving. And it was just really like special because we're all busy and things are going on. He's now 18 going on 19, and it's hard to find those blocks of time, and you really appreciate how much having those little spaces of time are valuable, and really kind of get through the light and fluffy stuff, and let you talk as people, and to build that deeper relationship. So I think that's probably the one lesson that, yeah, I'm not sure, regret is probably the wrong word, but I think those are probably
Hmm.
lessons learned that I would probably pass forward.
Hmm.
That's a great one. I love that. Spending that time. It's funny how being in a car, like you said, for 8 hours it just changes the relationship, right? I mean, you're connected. Are there some things that you're thinking maybe bucket list items or things that you might do with your kids moving forward? Or
Oh, there's lots, and we've traveled a lot with them.
nice.
I think it was funny. I this morning as I was getting stuff ready to get together, I asked my daughter about, hey, I have to do this podcast about being a dad. Well, if you had to choose one thing off the top of your head about what's an important dad thing, and she said, just spending time together.
Nice.
And her example was when the kids were smaller. We don't do it so much now. I was always kind of there to help them. Made them breakfast and got them out the door in the morning. And we always did this music morning. So I would put together a little playlist of something. It'd be an artist or a theme or maybe someone, and we would just listen to music as we made and ate breakfast, and we talk about the history of the bands or the
Wow.
musical genres and things like that. And so we still have that little theme. So we talk about music a lot. Still, both my kids are into music, and so yeah, those little moments in time where you just set some time apart are fabulous. And yeah, I'm hoping that through the whole rest of our lives, we get to travel together and maybe go see concerts together and do things together. And I think part of my joy, honestly, as the kids are getting older, is they have their own interests, and so they're
Yeah.
finding
Yeah.
their own passions, and they're introducing me to bands, and they've got all these aspects of the life that I'm learning about through them, and I think that's a pretty cool inversion of the relationship that happens, I think, quite naturally as they get older.
Yeah. That's fact. I love that. So in other words, there's dad music, I guess, right? You probably
Yeah.
introduce them to well, just out of curiosity, what does that look like? Is it a genre or is it a time frame or um,
Yeah, it was really eclectic. I have a very eclectic taste in music, but I think the
mhm.
fact that, yeah, if you go into my daughter's room and listen to her music that she's playing, it's just as likely to be Velvet Underground as it is to be Taylor Swift at this point.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. No, I'm laughing because I took my son to see Kiss, and
Oh,
he was I think he was about 10. And I remember him looking at me like, "You like this music?" I thought, you know, and we took him to see Poison and Cheap Trick, and I'm still living in the '70s, but my son just referenced it the other day. It's like, yeah, it's dad's music there. It's
yeah.
Oh, that's
70s
funny.
70s music. So that's fantastic. You're doing that.
Yeah,
That's an incredible connection you have. I love that idea too of doing a playlist. That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
That's
That's very
very
cool.
cool.
And it is interesting. And Kevin, you said something that nobody has said yet is, having a shared hobby that's not your kids and it's not yours, but it's together. And so that's a really interesting takeaway. And how do you create that connection with your kids? And I find for me that's the challenge is this connection piece. And
Mhm.
it's funny because when we're in the vehicle, my daughter and I we play songs and you pick one, I'll pick one, and
Right.
and it's funny because she picks a lot of great music from the '70s and '80s, and I'm like, oh,
Wow.
classic, Tears for Fears and stuff like that, and I know the words, and so we have that connection, and I think that's such a great way to really stay connected. Like whether or not you go on dates with your kids or you have something unique for each child, I think that's just a gift. So it's
Hmm.
interesting to hear your connection with music. Were you a musician in your younger days, or today,
No,
or your
just
kids?
outside of playing, trombone and tuba in high school band, no.
Okay.
That's the extent of
That's still
my
good.
my super nerdy influx into music. No, just an appreciator.
Right.
Yeah, when I was younger, growing up once we moved to Victoria when I was 16, I came from northern BC, and where there was really no music scene because there were small towns and things, and so to actually have access to live music and to bands and things was a real eye opener. And I've always just been a fan of going out to see music and have that. So that's all it is. It's just an appreciation. Both my kids are much more musical than I am. They both play guitar and sing and do all kinds of good stuff. So neither of them like performing, but they just love the music. So they're
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
I was going to say it sounds like there might be the start of a family band, but just saying.
Could be the Partridge Family coming all right back, all over this.
Summer
No,
is
that's
coming
probably
up.
not in
There's
the
lots of
books.
venues.
Yeah,
Little busking going on.
yeah. Kevin, what keeps you coming back, and what motivates you to, you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast having an open mind, but what motivates you to kind of keep trying to get better?
I don't know. I mean, I have, I guess I'm blessed with a lot of really positive role models in my life. I And I think, it's interesting. I mean, I think this has kind of gone away maybe a bit in politics, but I do think part of being a leader in the community is being an example.
Mm.
And, you know, I have benefited from by me trying to be a better person for my kids. It's made me a better person for myself and for everybody else as well.
Nice.
And so, I think of like we all go through ups and downs, but try to prioritize just doing simple things. I mean, like through COVID, I was really having a hard time. I wasn't taking care of myself mentally and physically and things, and I think everybody took a slightly different path through that. And through that, I was like, I have to be a better person, largely for my kids here to kind of make sure I'm being an example. And so just
Right.
realizing that if I had to prioritize my own, like I had to prioritize exercise. I had to prioritize my sleep health. I had to prioritize my mental health. And in that way, now I had a lot more energy and time and space to be a better parent. And that kind of was a cascading impact. And you're a better parent, you have better relationships, and that gives you strength to go and provide other pieces. So there's so many, I think, cascading benefits of being a dad, because you sort of have this obligation again of being not just saying the right things, but actually, you have to demonstrate the right things. And um, it's not like, oh, I'll go for a run. I can't run anymore because of my knees, but you go for a run, and your kids will, oh, I'll go for a run too. It doesn't work like that linearly,
Sounds
but I think you try and say, look, I'll live my life in a way that um, you know is a good example, and that sort of feedback loop is really positive. And then you see it maybe a year or two later, you'll see them doing some
Mhm.
things that reflect that, and that's whether that's just a focus on making sure that you get joy from giving to other people, or just being appreciative of what you have, and sort of letting go of the things you can't control, and owning your own behaviors and your emotions, and those things which are hard to do, right? Even as adults, they're hard to do,
Mhm.
like I think that's really important. And again, I really do think that creating that environment of safe space, so with yourself and your partner, and hopefully there's a partner, but appreciate sometimes that you don't, but to have that space there to give us that safety for kids to go and explore and learn, and do their own thing. And yeah, I think they're all just incredibly critical aspects of it, and it's pretty self-reward. I think I mean, as a parent, it's at times unbelievably frustrating, but the rewards are pretty high when you again, that ego gets translated, but when you see your kids sort of,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
see that, oh, they're good people, they're thoughtful, they're doing the right things, maybe they're making choices on paths of things maybe you don't agree with at the moment, but you recognize that it's their path to follow. And so I think the
Mhm.
reward is incredibly high. And so I find as long as I'm focusing on those portions of it, it's pretty easy to keep the energy up.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, just once again back to this whole concept of being a role model. Your examples are fantastic, and you definitely see it, don't you? I mean, as they're growing up, and you've influenced them by being intentional, which is very cool.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
better and worse, your bad examples last probably more than the good ones too.
Yeah. Yeah. We all know that. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Uh,
that's the beautiful thing about being a dad is that we try to be, and this is the better human dads, is try to be better every day. And you've really shown us that there are ways to, starting with yourself, take care of yourself and be a better person so that you can be a better dad. So that's a key takeaway for this morning too. So thank you for that.
Absolutely is. Absolutely
Yeah.
is. Well, just want to, once again, thank you for spending the time. It's been
Mhm.
fantastic to hear about
Yeah.
your story, and some great lessons learned. We're just a couple of dads talking to other dads about being dads, and
Yeah.
really appreciate all the stories you've shared. Thank you very much. That's been fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you,
And
Kevin. We know you're a busy guy, and you got to
yeah, yeah.
get to the office and run the municipality. And so a big thank you for sharing your time with us this morning. And have a fantastic day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'd like to just express my appreciation as well. Like I do think this kind of I'm really happy to see this sort of long format podcast conversational model becoming a thing. I think it's an important.
Mhm.
It's hard to get past the fluffy stuff, just in little clips, and I do think it's really important. I think parenthood and fatherhood is an incredibly important piece, and this is
Yeah.
a small piece of the pie, but I think in that talking about that continuum of doing good
Yeah.
and influencing, I
Mhm,
think
mhm, mhm.
this is a really key part of it. So yeah, thanks for doing this. I think it's really important that we're sharing the good and the bad and these things about being parents. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
Thank you,
thanks for all
Kevin.
the efforts.
well, we're getting people watching our videos on YouTube and Instagram
Yeah.
and Facebook. So once again,
Yeah.
thank you,
I'm sorry I'm
thank you
not
for the
more
time.
famous. I would otherwise I would help drive up your numbers.
Well,
It's
it's okay.
okay.
Yeah,
We're getting there
well,
one day at a time. That's
one day at a
that's
time. Yeah,
yeah.
10 years
Awesome.
from now, I tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again, and
Yeah.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Kevin.
have a great day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Take care.